Welcome everyone, this is Yvonne Davis and David Steele, accredited facilitators with the Rocky Mountain Compassionate Communication Network. And you're joining us for Unleash Your Creativity, a blending of The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron and Nonviolent Communication by Marshall Rosenberg. So today we are still in week 8 and we're going to talk about time management because that's one of the first things she mentions in chapter week 8. So I just wanted to say a little bit about my relationship to time management. It's gotten better over time, but I really struggled with it for a long time because what I realize now was that I was afraid to make decisions. So rather than just make a decision and move forward, I would just agonize over it. And that took a lot of time and energy, the agonizing. And so I always told myself the story that I am just terrible at time management. And really what was happening was it was a lack of responsibility. I didn't want to take responsibility. I didn't want to make decisions. So it was, in a way, I was just avoiding that by telling myself I couldn't manage my time. But it was really, I just didn't want to make decisions because then I'd have to be responsible for them. So that's where I used to be, not so much now, but that doesn't mean I don't still desire better time management skills. So David's gonna start telling us something, I hope, that will help us manage our time. What do you think?
Why does Julie Cameron put time management in a section where she talks a lot about loss? And you don't have to answer that. You can if you want, but that was a rhetorical question.
But I do think I have an answer to that question, which is that, and for me, it goes back to Don Juan Matus and his warrior teachings in Castaneda's books, because one of the teachings in Journey to Ixtlan, it has to do with death as the advisor. And it's interesting because when I think about time and this space-time continuum, I always think about the planet Saturn. And Saturn is also known as Chronos, or Father Time. Time and death are intimately related because they that is the ultimate limitation in this space-time continuum time, where we all have to acknowledge that we have a limited amount of time to experience this life as the person that we are now on planet Earth. So I think that's why time and time management and death and loss are so intimately interwoven, because of that existential reality, that existential acknowledgement of the limitations. And we have to accept it. It's just part of this space-time continuum. So if you are willing to acknowledge your mortality and the limited amount of time you have, I think that also leads us to confronting the idea of loss. And what are you going to do? You could just ignore it, pretend it doesn't exist. But as we've talked about so many times so far in this program, every time you push something away and repress it, it doesn't go away. In fact, the amount of energy you expend to repress something and ignore it doubles, because you have the initial pain and trauma associated with that loss, and then on top of it, you have all the energy it takes to repress it. So that's why I think this these topics are interwoven in this week 8.
What do you need me for? Golly. I think you hit the nail on the head. So there's another piece to it too, which is effective time management is connected to abundance. Because of the limitations of time, and we make decisions. When we say yes to something, often we're saying no to something else. And that something else may never come around again. So there's loss there. But in order to do that, the abundance comes in. Whatever we're saying yes to will be enough to meet our needs, to be fulfilling. So even if this other thing that we're saying no to drifts away, it doesn't mean we won't get our needs met. And so that also is where attachment to outcome really stifles us. Because when we're open to abundance and we make all of these decisions, we know that there is enough time to do what we need to do. If we are in a state of consciousness where we see the abundance, if we're in a state of consciousness where we see the lack, there's not enough time to get everything done, and I didn't do this, and I didn't do that, and I didn't do blah, 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 blah. But that's because we're fixated on the form, not on the underlying need, not on the underlying fulfillment. So if I'm doing something that brings me joy and fulfillment in this moment, I'm pretty satisfied, and I'm not focusing on the other stuff that I could have done. So that's another, that abundance is really important. And we're on a chapter on strength, so that ability to face our own mortality and to acknowledge loss and not repress it is a big part of strength. And also letting go of outcome is really all connected to connection, because when we have that sense of connection, then we find fulfillment in whatever it is that we do. So those are my initial thoughts.
Well, listening to you, David, brings up for me the reality that I actually do have a lot of fear. I do experience that sense of lack and limitation and scarcity, and it brings up fear. And I mean, I know that, each of us get 24 hours in a day. Nobody's figured out how to make more time in a day. And we have to sleep. That's just a reality as well. Maybe, not everybody is the same where that's concerned, but I know I need at least eight solid, uninterrupted hours of sleep. And if I don't get that, then I get pretty loopy. So
it's true. She gets pretty loopy.
So that gives me 16 hours a day, and although I have my whole lifetime, part of the reason why this is important to me is because, if I think, okay, I have a few more decades to live, there's lots I can do in those decades, but it's like a accumulation. So as an example, I'm working on the MFA degree right now, and that feels very meaningful to me. At the same time, I'm thinking I need the MFA in order to apply for certain teaching positions that I would like to have. So right now, I'm working a full-time temp position in a law firm. I'd rather be working as a university professor teaching creative writing or literature, because that's where my passion is. So I get this sense like I have to get all these things done, because that, the sooner these things are done, the sooner I can get on to the things that I really love and enjoy. And that's, I think, to a large degree where I sense this pressure, this limitation, this lack, and the fear arises. And so it's not that I want to necessarily change that, because I am empathetic to my experience. I know that if I just acknowledge it, just observe it, be empathetic toward myself, it'll change itself. I don't need to change myself. It will take care of itself, at the same time, what I want to understand is how that story can be transformed from the frenetic, stressed out, I've got so much to do, how do I get all this done, into more trust, that, there is a natural unfolding. There's only 16 waking hours in a day, and certain things need to get done, because I will probably function better if I'm not homeless, so there's certain amount of time that needs to be spent on just the basic maintenance of life, paying bills, hygiene, feeding yourself, and one of the things that drops to the bottom of my list of priorities is housekeeping. But there are certain things that you simply can't eliminate, hygiene is important to me, so I have to spend a certain amount of time on that. I need to eat. Sometimes I will multitask, but ultimately, I think one of the things I've definitely learned from you over the years, David, is I used to spend a lot more energy having anxiety about the 10 things on my to-do list. And David helped me to see very clearly that I could probably only do one of those things at a time. So all the energy that I was expending having anxiety about the 9 things I wasn't doing was slowing me down. So if I could just focus on the one thing that I was doing at that moment and let the rest go, because that was just a reality of life, I could probably get that one thing done more efficiently. And I found that to be true. So that's something that has definitely helped me over the years. And then something else is to allow myself some downtime, some self-care, because I used to, oh my goodness, I was terrible. I had this story in my head about how I was lazy, because that was a word that my mom used when I was growing up to try to, have some, I don't know. I want to use the word manipulate, but that sounds so judgmental.
Compel you to do what she thought was in your own best interest.
Right. Or to help her meet needs. And so that was the word that was used as that tool, that strategy. Unfortunately, that was deeply embedded in my consciousness. And I was a perfectionist. And so I couldn't allow myself downtime or self-care, because then that story, that judgmental story of being lazy would come up. And so, again, what ended up happening is everything would take so much longer, because instead of just allowing myself the rest that I needed and then getting on with my other tasks, the time that I needed would at least double, or not triple or quadruple, because I couldn't actually allow myself the downtime or the rest. So there I am, all, I'm trying to get some rest. How can I rest like that? Sure, it's going to take.
Did you ever crash and burn?
Yeah, I'm sure I did. So anyway, those are 2 things I've definitely learned over the years. Actually, I should say 3. The first was to acknowledge that I was afraid to make decisions, because then I'd have to take responsibility for them. So I avoided it. And that just kept me in a nebulous space, and that wasted time. And then second was to not allow myself downtime. And so that meant that the rest that I needed to get would take at least 2, 3, or 4 times longer. And then the other was to have anxiety about the 9 things I wasn't doing, and that would also, that just drained me of time and energy as well. So I've learned those 3 things at least over the years. And yet I still am not at peace with the way that I use my time. I know there's still a lot of fear around that. And so I'm hoping, and I'm hoping also that the people watching this video will, you know, if they're having any of these challenges as well, that they will find something meaningful in this video that can help them.
Right. You maybe even leave a comment at the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty stirred. I've been noticing on the camera my face has been going kind of blank a little bit and stuff. And it's because I'm really stirred by your words. I think you're speaking for the vast majority of people when you talk about this dilemma. Mm-hmm. So there's also a reason that this work on time management and strength comes after chapters on identity and integrity. Because when we make choices, if we are grounded in that integrity and clear on who we are, then it's possible to make choices about how we use our time that feed our being. When that is weak, then often we're susceptible to whatever comes along and someone asks us to do something or help with something and our heart isn't really in it, but we are afraid to say no, or we don't want to seem like we're rude or whatever, and we are moving into an external locus of control where other people are defining who we are and how we spend our time. Mm-hmm. When we have that internal locus of control where we're just really embedded in our own identity and acting in integrity, then we make deliberate decisions. Mm-hmm. And it reminds me of when I visited Walden Pond. There's a plaque there by the lake where Henry David Thoreau's cabin used to be. It's a quote of his, and he said, "I moved to the forest to learn to live deliberately and see what nature had to teach me." Mm-hmm. And I just love that phrase, to live deliberately, to make life an affirmative act of expression, an artistic exuding of our being, rather than being some sort of buffeting around on the sea of reality, just dealing with whatever comes at me, being the captain of my own ship. And time management is critical to that. It's absolutely critical to that. And so we have two choices here in time management right now. We can, I love what you said. And when we started talking about this video, Yvonne said, "Oh, you talk." And I said, "Well, why don't you start by saying a little bit about your relationship with time?" And she rose to the occasion stupendously, because I think what you said is just really, it's the nail on the head. Mm-hmm. So we've done a lot of theory. We either make this kind of a long recording and start going into nitty-gritty example detail, or we make that as another recording. What do you want to do?
I think this is a good stopping place, because there's been, this video has been pretty meaty already. So yeah, let's go ahead and we'll bring this to a close. And then in our next video, we'll talk more about strategy and practicality around ways to manage your time. Okay, so in that case, as always, if you have not yet subscribed to this channel, please subscribe and ring the bell for notifications. Share on your social media and with your friends and family. Click like on this video, and if you have any comments or questions, please leave them in the boxes below. And we will see you tomorrow.
Bye.